Still coming in as the vote counting continues in two of the most watched races of the midterms primary cycle, California governor and Los Angeles mayor. In L.A., it could be the incumbent versus the reality star. Karen Bass is projected to advance to the November ballot, but the second slot is still up in the air. Meantime, the state's 60-candidate race for governor is also TBD, with the top two finishers facing off in the general, regardless of the party affiliation. And this is where things stand at the moment. But get this, 40% of the vote or so is still being tallied. And that could take another week or even more, because the state's mail-in voting laws extend the time that it takes to get results, and the results won't officially be certified for another month. While those matchups are too early to call, we do know a Trump-endorsed candidate lost the Republican primary in Iowa's race for governor. We're on top of it all with our reporters and analysts. MS Now's Julianne McShane is here with us. Alex Tabbitt is in Des Moines. We're also joined by former Obama campaign manager Jim Messina and former advisor to then House Speaker John Boehner, Maura Gillespie. And Julianne, let me start with you. You've been on top of the LA mayor's race and Spencer Pratt's rise in that contest. Where do things stand at this hour?
So as you said, at the moment, all we know is that the incumbent mayor, Karen Bass, is guaranteed to be proceeding to the November election. She has about 35% of the vote. Beyond that, the question is really who's going to be joining her. The Associated Press hasn't made that call for the second place candidate, but it looks like it probably will be Spencer Pratt, the ex-reality TV star with MAGA and Trump's backing. He's polling at about 30%, Mayor Bass about 35%, and then Councilmember Nithya Raman, the Democratic Socialist candidate, is polling in third place at about 22%. So again, the AP hasn't made an official call between Pratt and Raman, but Pratt seems to have a good lead. He really seems to have overperformed. GOP strategists who I spoke to earlier in my reporting had said they didn't think he would pass 20% of the vote. And then also he has no political experience. And, 6 months ago, he was making TikTok videos every day. So this is all, I think, quite unexpected. But at the moment, I think everyone's just waiting to see who gets that official second place call.
Okay, so we'll be watching that very closely. Julianne, thank you for bringing us that update. Jim, what are you watching for as the California results come in for both mayor and governor?
Yeah, the governor's race is incredibly interesting. It looks like Steve Hilton's going to advance to the next round. Becerra has a lead, but there are so many votes out there right now. It is very interesting to see whether Tom Steyer can have enough mail-in ballots. We might not know about this for several days. And so, we sit here, I'm in San Francisco this morning, where the establishment Democrats had a very big night in local elections. And then we're looking at all these congressional elections in California. If the Dems are going to take the House back, they have to have the right candidates in these congressional races. And it looks like this morning they got what they needed in California. And it's a big moment for the Democrats' chances to take the House back in November.
Maura, California is the most populous state in the country. Is there anything to take away more broadly when you look at voter turnout or how key demographics appear to be breaking? What's your big takeaway?
Well, I mean, as you said, for a state that has, 23 million people living in it, or registered voters at least, that turnout isn't great in a broad scale. And I think that not only with the California governor's race, but also with the mayoral race in LA, this lack of appetite for choices. There's no real great options. And so when you're forced to have that, you see these runoffs where Democrats chose not to rally behind one person for the gubernatorial, and it created a bigger field. And Steve Hilton is doing well because of that. Obviously, there's some other issues with the Democrats' choices there. But I think by and large, you're seeing a lack of choices that has resulted in people like a Spencer Pratt being a very much possibility for running up against Karen Bass in LA. I think that to me says a lot about not only the people who are turning out to run for office. We now in New Jersey, where I'm currently situated, those words were actually very choice there. Mike, the situation is contemplating a run for office. These reality stars are seeing that Donald Trump became president twice. And so when you have that opportunity and that role model there, they think that, well, why not? And I have concerns that as somebody who cares about what happens to our democracy, who cares about what happens in our republic as far as representation. And so I think that there is a need for people who are interested in public service for the right reasons.
Alex, Iowa got interesting last night. It served President Trump a rare defeat with the guy he endorsed losing the Republican primary for governor. Why wasn't it enough to sway Iowa voters?
Well, Anna, here in Iowa, it's all about shaking hands and kissing babies. And that's something that Representative Randy Feenstra just didn't do. He was not barnstorming the state, pressing flesh, getting to know voters in the way that the voters here in Iowa expect of candidates. Meanwhile, Zach Lane, the underdog candidate, got an endorsement from Turning Point USA, focused his campaign squarely on taking on Big Pharma, on trying to solve the cancer crisis that's unfolding here in the state of Iowa. And he was everywhere, multiple events a day, crisscrossing the Hawkeye State to clinch this nomination, to surprise the country, making it the first non-Trump endorsed candidate to defeat a Trump endorsed candidate in a major statewide race this midterm cycle. Now, after clinching his party's nomination, after Rob Sand, the Democrat, clinched his party's nomination, these two candidates set their sights on one another. I want you to hear from these two candidates in their victory messages last night.
Rob Sand wants you to believe he's a moderate. We've seen this movie before. Across America, liberals like Rob Sand pretend to be moderates so they can get elected, and they govern like radicals.
His lies about his past and the fact that he still more or less lives in Kansas means that he's not the best choice in this race. I believe we should have a governor that actually puts Iowa first instead of just writing it under the wings of his plane when he flies over us to go back to Kansas.
These two candidates, as you just heard, trading barbs already. Both of these candidates have pledged to do the full Grassley. That means visiting all of Iowa's 99 counties. So in this general election, the voters of Iowa are going to get the campaigns they feel they deserve. Anna.
Alex Tabbitt, thank you so much for that reporting in Iowa. Maura, is there a lesson here for the president when it comes to posting an endorsement, just, doing that, saying, I support this guy, versus really putting his thumb on the scale and giving a candidate his full-throttled support?
Yeah, and he really didn't for Feenstra. You saw that it was a late endorsement, pretty lackadaisical, and you kind of saw that a lot on Tuesday. He sent out a bunch of tweets for members to support in the Republican Party. It felt almost kind of like checking a box, or maybe it was a staffer who did it for him. I'll just speak again to New Jersey. He endorsed Tom Keene Jr., a Republican here who has not been seen in months, and so saying that he'll continue to fight for you and really touted him. But I think when it comes to Iowa, what was just said there, the full Grassley, I do think there's this idea of recognizing that not every state operates the same way. I think people of Iowa are looking for somebody who's going to listen to them and respond to their needs and put forth policies that impact their day-to-day lives. And I think so much of what the president focuses on and what impacts him and his personal ambitions, as opposed to what each district and each state needs to address.
Jim, in Iowa's Democratic Senate primary, State Senator Zach Walz rebuked the establishment, and he lost to Josh Turek. Now, Turek has a compelling backstory. He's a Paralympic gold medalist for wheelchair basketball, born with spina bifida after his father was exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam. Iowa has become more and more red. Could Turek have an actual shot at the general?
I think so, and part of it it's because of Rob Sand in the governor's race. Anna, there's no more talented candidate than I've seen in this cycle than Rob Sand, and so that combined with Josh Turek, it was a big night for the Democrats. They haven't won a statewide federal election since Barack Obama in 2012, and yet they got the two candidates they absolutely needed. Chuck Schumer put his weight behind Josh Turek. Vote Vets spent $10 million to get him through that primary, and he won handily. And so this is a seat that Democrats are now looking at, saying this is now a toss-up seat and might be the seat that gives them the 50th or 51st vote to control the United States Senate.
Maura, we've also been following a key House race in New Jersey where Republican incumbent Tom Keene Jr. is MIA, skipping roughly 100 votes since March. His challenger was cemented last night. Now his campaign says his absence is for an undisclosed medical issue. Could it cost Republicans the seat?
It's a toss-up seat for sure, and it kind of always has been. But I do think that the lack of transparency, I do think that voters are willing to give grace, especially when it comes to a medical issue. But going radio silent for several months until, really last month, where he has, reportedly talked to Speaker Johnson saying he'll share what's going on, in the coming weeks. Well, we've been waiting for some time here, and it feels very bizarre to not have any answers whatsoever and to not have representation in a seat that really does matter, especially in the House majority when you have such a slim majority. Every vote counts, and not showing up for work, I think the people of New Jersey are going to be a little frustrated by that and may not reward him for really not giving us answers for several months. And so for his constituents especially, but also to his conference, more needs to be shared there. Transparency is important. And I think that the president's endorsement of him, again, like I said, feels a little bit kind of checking a box and going through the motions.
Jim, your thoughts on this race?
Moore is exactly right. This is the most swingy congressional district in New Jersey and maybe the whole Northeast. And so the fact that you got an incumbent in a tough race that his party has to have disappear for months on end, we just haven't seen anything like that. And I would bet the voters have something very strong to say in November about this.
Jim Messina and Maura Gillespie, thank you both for starting us off this hour. And still ahead, speaking of that New Jersey House race, Democrat Rebecca Bennett is going to join us later this hour, how she plans to take on Congressman Tom Kean Jr., who's been missing from Congress for months. Plus, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche says President Trump's anti-weaponization fund is dead. What's Trump still getting out of it? But first, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is back on the Hill, getting another grilling about the war with Iran, how he's defending the president. We have the very latest when we come back. Marco Rubio, for a second day in a row, he told senators yesterday the Iran war is over. But that's not what we're hearing from President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu this morning.
How likely is it that we will see a military escalation here?
I'd leave it to President Trump. I think he understands what's at stake, and he understands also that he's not a pushover.
We'll see what happens. We're working on a deal, and if that happens, fine. If it doesn't happen, that's okay too. We'll do it the other way.
And we're already seeing more strikes in the region today. An Iranian drone hitting an airport in Kuwait. Iran claiming it's retaliation for the most recent U.S. self-defense strikes. Let's take you to MS Now's Ali Vitale outside that hearing room on the Hill. Ali, bring us up to speed. What questions has Rubio faced so far this morning?
It has been fiery and contentious, and Rubio himself, difficult to rattle during these kinds of hearings. He's been on both sides, both asking questions and then, of course, now sitting in the hot seat himself as Secretary of State. But we have seen him jab more at lawmakers. The House side always brings a different flavor, and certainly I think we're starting to see that today. But the questions have been focused on the various hotspots across the globe. Specific focus on Iran, though Rubio has not really given away much in terms of where negotiations stand and what the contours of a likely deal would look like. He has, though, been pressed on the fact that the war is still ongoing. One of the Democratic lawmakers, Sarah Jacobs of California, seizing on comments that Rubio made yesterday with Senator Cory Booker when he was testifying on the Senate side, where he said that the war is over. Instead, pressed with those comments today, Rubio said, well, Operation Epic Fury is over, obviously leaving open the reality that we're still seeing those trading of strikes in the region. But then there was also this fiery moment with Congressman Keating of Massachusetts that I want to play for you. Watch this moment.
You mentioned 15 different incidents where you have interceded. 15, the top 15. Not once did you mention Ukraine when you were prioritizing the achievement that's there. Now let me go on.
Try to stay under 5 minutes.
Let me go on. Oh, you tried to stay. Yeah. Please. It's not funny. It's not funny, Secretary. Now,
what's not funny
in Iran now.
Well, you don't.
In Iran now, I reclaim my time. I'm not. I reclaim my time, Mr. Chairman.
You guys make these statements, and no one can respond.
He is interrupting me.
So just one example of what I mean when I say that this hearing has been fiery. That being said, I have been listening for any Republicans that sound skeptical or at least impatient about the way that this Iran war has been dragging on. We know that the political concerns are also front of mind for them as we see continued high prices at the gas pump because of the difficulties in the Strait of Hormuz. So far, no Republicans have said anything to that effect, but certainly Democrats trying to take the Secretary of State to task, Anna.
Ali Vitale, thank you for staying on it, my friend. Meantime, Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche is fresh off his latest appearance on Capitol Hill, sparring with lawmakers at a congressional hearing yesterday. And this morning, his boss is praising him, President Trump, saying he might want Blanche to take on the role permanently.
Will he be Attorney General, or have you decided?
I think you will, yeah.
You haven't got someone else in mind?
No.
Not Ron DeSantis?
I wanted to see how he's received. You know, we put him as acting, and he's done a very good job.
Let's bring in MS Now Justice and Intelligence reporter Ken Delanian. So, Ken, the president's happy with what he sees from Blanche. Bring us the top lines from that hearing yesterday on the Hill and what Blanche had to say.
And why wouldn't he be happy? Anna, Todd Blanche, his former defense attorney, has done almost everything he could possibly have wanted the president as the acting attorney general. And this weaponization fund was only the latest. Not only did Todd Blanche become the public face of it and explain it to Congress, now he's having to beat a hasty retreat with no considerable small amount of damage to his reputation. So that was one of the headlines from the hearing yesterday, that Todd Blanche said explicitly that they are not moving forward with this $1.8 billion weaponization fund that critics worried would go to violent January 6th felons and others who committed wrongdoing as part of other investigations. So they're not doing that. But what they are still doing is granting Donald Trump and his family immunity from IRS audits related to potentially $100 million in allegedly improper deductions. And that obviously drew intense criticism from Democrats. I will say about that, though, it's hard to imagine that that would survive a change of administrations. This is an agreement between the Trump administration and signed by Donald Trump's former defense attorney and Donald Trump and his family. And it seems like it could be changed by a Democrat who takes office in the next term. But we'll have to see. As of right now, it means that the IRS audit that was ongoing against Donald Trump and his family is suspended on it.
And it's still unclear what the courts are going to do with all of this, so we'll be watching. And meantime, Ken, the other big development we're tracking is this fallout from Trump appointing Bill Pulte, the acting director of national intelligence, or that's his new pick for that role. Pulte has no intelligence or national security experience. This pick is getting bipartisan blowback, but again, he would be serving in an acting capacity. Does that ensure it would just be temporary? How long could he hold this role?
Yeah, up to 210 days under the Vacancies Act, because he has previously been confirmed by the Senate to a different job. Let's remember, he is an heir to a home building fortune, has no intelligence experience, no foreign policy experience that we're aware of. And Democrats are so concerned about having Bill Pulte as the acting director of national intelligence that Mark Warner, the ranking Democrat on the Intelligence Committee, has told John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, that Pulte's presence as acting DNI imperils the renewal of a crucial surveillance and intelligence tool called Section 703 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which is up for renewal in 9 days. It expires if they don't renew it. And essentially, the Democrats are saying, we don't have the votes with this guy as the acting DNI. That is essentially a nuclear option, because people from both parties say if FISA expires, the nation's security is at risk. This is something this is a tool that the FBI and the CIA and others use to find terrorists, to find domestic extremists, all kinds of people, bad people that could harm the nation's security. And Democrats are saying this could be at risk if Bill Pulte remains in this job. So we'll have to see where that goes on.
Ken Delanian, thank you so much for staying on top of those updates. Up next, the shocking exit of a well-respected, long-time, award-winning CBS News correspondent, Scott Pelley, why the network says it let him go. Plus, Republican Congressman Tom Kean Jr. has missed over 100 votes. He hasn't been seen in Washington since March. His new Democratic opponent, Rebecca Bennett, will join us coming up.
On MS Now.
We are back with a stunning shakeup at CBS News. CBS has fired longtime 60 Minutes correspondent and former evening news anchor Scott Pelley after news of a heated clash at a 60 Minutes staff meeting Monday became public. Audio of the meeting was obtained by the New York Times, capturing the moment Pelley accused CBS editor-in-chief Barry Weiss of, quote, murdering 60 Minutes. after she installed a new executive producer with no prior broadcast experience to replace the executive producer she fired last month. She also let go correspondents Sharon Alfonsi and Cecilia Vega. Now, on a call this morning, Weiss reportedly told CBS staff they wanted to find a way forward with Pelley, but they weren't able to do so. Pelley put out a new statement saying those comments aren't true. CBS is expected to release a formal statement later today. Joining us now with his own insight reporting, Puck senior correspondent Dylan Byers. Dylan, Scott Pelley was one of the best-known faces on CBS. He won dozens of awards during his time at the network. Talk to us about just how striking both this firing is and to see it all play out so publicly.
Well, it's incredibly striking, Anna, and it comes on the heels, of course, not only of the firings of Sharon Alfonsi and Cecilia Vega, but also the departure of Anderson Cooper. And no one has left the building at 60 Minutes without some version of what Scott did, some sort of criticism toward the new management and indeed the new ownership about the direction of the show. And Scott was only the most vocal among them. And the real problem now for 60 Minutes and for Bari Weiss is that he is being extremely vocal. As the statement you mentioned that he put out this morning, he is now accusing her of lying about what took place in their meeting. And it is very difficult to see how this new leadership is able to usher 60 Minutes as it has existed in the past into the future. We only have 3 remaining correspondents there. I know that they currently are deliberating over what they are going to do. It's very possible that we're going to arrive at a moment here in a matter of weeks, if not days, where there is no existing talent left at 60 Minutes, and they are going to have to build this back up from scratch.
My understanding is Pelley had a second meeting yesterday afternoon with CBS News leadership after that clash on Monday with Nick Bilton. What do you know about that second meeting?
Well, it depends on who you believe. I mean, yes, there was a meeting. They came together at around 5 p.m. And the messaging from Bari Weiss and Nick Bilton in the front office is that they were looking to find a path forward. As Scott Pelley has said, there was no effort to find a path forward. He put forward questions, and they stonewalled him, is what he has said. And what you have here pretty clearly is just two sides that frankly hate each other. To put it bluntly. And that is, I think, evocative of the larger tension at 60 Minutes, right? You have, and CBS News, you have a front office that has a lot of faith and conviction in its plan to change the network, but has very little to no operational or managerial experience. And then you have a veteran class who says, hey, look, what we have been doing, what this show has been for a long time has been successful. 60 Minutes has been the #1 highest rated American news program going back over half a century. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And unfortunately, those two sides just can't see eye to eye. And that's become clear now in the wave of both the firings and then, as I mentioned, Anderson's own departure.
Yeah, just from a business standpoint, how risky is it to fire somebody like Scott Pelley and these other correspondents to remove the face of this very profitable and successful program?
It's incredibly risky. And look, there are just two contrasting viewpoints here about what 60 Minutes is. Again, a lot of people think that what 60 Minutes has been very successful. The view, again, from Bari and Nick Bilton, the new executive producer, is that like all of linear television, it is in decline and it needs to take radical steps to change. But change in any industry, particularly in a consumer-facing industry like television news, is something that has to be finessed. It has to be done quietly, without flare-ups going off every single day. The existential challenge for Bari and her team now is that there's not a single day that goes by when there's not some sort of controversy playing out on the pages of the tabloids or across the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. Bari is the story. She has been the story since she got there, and she has had so many missteps and unforced errors along the way that it becomes very hard to see how the parent company at Paramount, David Ellison, wants to continue with the status quo, such as it's been established.
In Pelley's termination letter, Bilton, the new guy taking over CBS 60 Minutes specifically, He writes that Pelley hijacked my first meeting with staff to disparage me, my qualifications, and my intentions with remarkable incivility and contempt. What can you tell us about Bilton and the direction he's expected to take 60 Minutes?
Well, first of all, we should say this. There are a lot of people out there who are Team Scott Pelley right now, and there are some people out there, too, who are Team Barry and Team Nick. Nick is not wrong on the merits of what he said, insofar as anyone else who did what Scott Pelley did in any other industry probably would have been fired for cause on the spot. The difference is it's journalism. And the difference is, you ask what can Nick do? Nick comes into the building with very limited experience, as Scott Pelley himself put it, slender qualifications for this job. And really, 60 Minutes is something that has been built around the journalists, built around the talent. They have long been inoculated, even from the rest of CBS News. And so they have very different feelings about who gets to call the shots. Now, at the end of the day, Barry and Nick get to call the shots. They've called the shots that they have. But what are they left with? What is Nick left with? He is going to have to go out and again, build this thing up from scratch, try to hire a lot of people. And the problem is that when you do this much reputational damage to a brand, that recruitment effort becomes extremely challenging.
Dylan Byers, you live and you breathe the media industry. Thank you so much for taking the time to help analyze what's happening there. Good to have you. Meanwhile, we are monitoring DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullin's hearing before the House Homeland Security Committee. This is Mullin's first time appearing before House lawmakers since he was sworn in back in March, replacing the fired Kristi Noem. MS Now congressional reporter Michael Schnell following that hearing for us. Michael, walk us through the key moments from this hearing so far today.
Yeah, the hearing has been ongoing for a little bit over an hour and a half already, but there has been a lot of ground covered. Obviously, Department of Homeland Security covers a lot of ground in the government, and lawmakers are still trying to figure out just what kind of DHS Secretary Mullin is. So he has been pressed on a breadth of topics, including that anti-weaponization fund, the protests at the Delaney Hall detention facility. He said he's in favor of peaceful protests, but noted that some of his officers have been harmed, some vehicles have been impacted, and questioned if that is how peaceful protests should move forward. He's also talked about the lapse in funding for ICE and Border Patrol. Of course, that has been an ongoing saga up here on Capitol Hill and at the Department of Homeland Security. He said that it was the wrong move for lawmakers to leave those agencies unfunded. And he's also, of course, been pressed on the immigration crackdown by the administration, which has been one of the most telling and most noteworthy actions the administration has taken in its months in office. He was pressed on this by Congressman Lou Correa, a Democrat from California. Take a listen.
Am I going to have to tell my children at home to carry an American passport with them when they're out in the street?
Congressman, I'm from Indian country. I'm from Indian country, and we got a lot of brown people around there too. I'm Cherokee.
No, I'm not talking about.
We're not doing that. No, but
look,
it is. It's the same thing that you're saying.
Renee Good and Alex Preddy, we're not brown. Oh my God. Okay.
But why
we have American citizens being arrested right now by ICE? American citizens that are actually being deported.
So, Anna, we'll keep watching to see as, again, Markwayne Mullin, the former senator, faces his former congressional colleagues. One thing we're also keeping an eye on that relates to the Department of Homeland Security, John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, said the Senate could move forward with some votes later today on that ICE and Border Patrol funding. We'll keep an eye on that as DHS. Dominates the conversation in the Capitol.
Michael Schnell, thank you. And coming up, the Supreme Court hands Alabama Republicans a win, greenlighting a congressional map that eliminates a majority black district. But first, she won New Jersey's Democratic House primary to take on Republican Tom Kean Jr., who's been missing from Congress now for 3 months. Rebecca Bennett joins us after the break. Chosen their candidate to take on the Republican incumbent in an important battleground district this fall. Former Navy helicopter pilot Rebecca Bennett won the Democratic primary for New Jersey's 7th congressional district last night. She now prepares to face off against Republican Congressman Tom Kean Jr., who has been absent from Congress for nearly 3 months. Democrats are hoping to flip this purple seat. Now, back in 2020, President Biden won the district by over 10 points. Fast forward to 2024, and President Trump won it by just about 1 point. The new Democratic nominee for New Jersey's 7th Congressional District, Rebecca Bennett, joins us now. Rebecca, big smile this morning. It's a big morning for you. What did you hear from voters, and what do you think set you apart from the other Democratic hopefuls?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. And you know what I heard most from everybody on the ground in the district is, I just want to win. I just want to flip this seat because people on the ground understand how important this seat is to being able to take back the House. And so we've got to make sure
to take on the Republican incumbent in an important battleground district this fall. Former Navy helicopter pilot Rebecca Bennett won the Democratic primary for New Jersey's 7th Congressional District last night. She now prepares to face off against Republican Congressman Tom Kean Jr., who has been absent from Congress for nearly 3 months. Democrats are hoping to flip this purple seat. Now, back in 2020, President Biden won the district by over 10 points. Fast forward to 2024, and President Trump won it by just about 1 point. The new Democratic nominee for New Jersey's 7th Congressional District, Rebecca Bennett, joins us now. Rebecca, big smile this morning. It's a big morning for you. What did you hear from voters, and what do you think set you apart from the other Democratic hopefuls?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. And you know what I heard most from everybody on the ground in the district is, I just want to win. I just want to flip this seat because people on the ground understand how important this seat is to being able to take back the House. And so we've got to make sure on the field to be able to do that. And my background, I'm a former military veteran. I served in the military for over 15 years. I flew helicopters for the Navy. I worked in the private sector in healthcare, and I'm a mom of 2. And all those things really uniquely position me on being able to put together the coalition that we need of Democrats, independents, and Republicans in this district to be able to flip this seat.
Your Republican opponent, Congressman Thomas Kean Jr., he has been missing from Congress for nearly 3 months now due to an unexplained medical issue, according to his team. He released a statement yesterday saying that he will return to work within a matter of weeks and looks forward to sharing his experience with the public. What's your reaction to Kean's absence? He's missed about 100 votes. And do you expect him to debate you in the coming months?
Look, I really sincerely wish him well. Everything that we've heard publicly is he has a medical condition, so I do wish him a speedy recovery. But looking at his record, he has absolutely failed this district. He has been nowhere to be found. He was the deciding vote on the One Big Beautiful Bill, which is the reason why tens of thousands of people in our district are losing access to health insurance. He was nowhere to be found when Donald Trump got us into yet another forever war in the Middle East. He was nowhere to be found when Donald Trump tried to hold up funding for the Gateway Tunnel, which is a critical infrastructure project. And he was nowhere to be found when DHS tried to put an ICE detention facility in our district. And so we are going to hold him accountable for his record, and we are going to flip the seat in November.
Last month, a PAC with ties to Republicans spent more than $650,000 on negative ads against you. That's just on the primary election side of things. They argued that you would be soft on immigration policy. Of course, the Delaney Hall protests are a huge flashpoint in your state right now. What would you do about Delaney Hall if elected?
Yeah, I also want to just take a minute to your point about the super PAC. The Republicans did try to spend over $650,000 in negative attack ads to try to put their thumb on the scale in this primary. And, as I said last night, I want to congratulate them for lighting their money on fire because we were able to have a decisive victory. And so, we are going to be able to flip this seat. On the Delaney Hall piece, certainly what we're seeing with ICE across this country is just absolutely beyond the pale. And ICE needs to be held accountable like any other federal law enforcement agency. And so that is why we need to make sure that we can flip this seat to be able to hold ICE and the rest of this administration accountable.
But what does accountability look like? And do you approve of how the governor has handled the protests outside Delaney Hall, putting local and state police in charge of handling the situation there?
Accountability to me looks like holding ICE accountable just like any other federal law enforcement agency. I mean, the fact that we have mass unidentified agents that are murdering Americans in broad daylight. They are detaining children. They are deporting military veterans. Is certainly not allowed in the military. And so I go back to how we would have treated this in, I'm a former helicopter pilot. And so how we treat it in the military is if there's something that happens, there's an investigation that's done. And if you're found at fault, you get held accountable. Your boss gets held accountable. Your boss's boss gets held accountable, because you need to have good order and discipline in the organization. And so what accountability looks like at the federal level is we need to make sure that people have warrants, that they don't have masks, they have identification, and that, again, they're just held accountable like any other federal law enforcement agency.
President Trump narrowly won this district back in 2024. It's seen as one of the few purple districts left in the country, frankly. With this close fight over House control, what kind of financial resources do you think you're going to need to win?
This is certainly going to be one of the most expensive races in the country. And so we are going to make sure we have the resources to be able to take on Tom Kean Jr. and flip this seat. And so, I'm confident that we'll have the resources we need to be able to do that. I also just add, we do need to get money out of politics. We just saw that we had this dark money that came in attacking me in the primary. I believe very strongly we need to end Citizens United. I personally am not taking any corporate PAC money. I've also already divested all my individual stocks, in contrast with Congressman Tom Kean Jr., who is continuing to trade stocks after he promised that he would not do that when he ran in the first place in 2022.
Rebecca Bennett, thank you for joining us. And we'll be watching your district closely as we head into the general election. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Coming up, a majority black district in Alabama erased after the Supreme Court